Governor Walz doubling down and calling former President Trump and J.D. Vance weird and creepy last night. And he also said this.
Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedoms. I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there? I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
What do you make of this attack line, this weird line that he actually came up with, Lara?
Well, I think it's kind of weird to put female hygiene products in boys' bathrooms starting in 4th grade, which is something Governor Tim Walz did. I think it's a little weird to tell parents that if you don't actually go along with your child wanting to get a sex change operation, then you could have your rights as a parent removed from that child. Those things are weird. What you heard there, Anna, is that the attack lines that the Democrats are prepared to use against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have absolutely nothing to do with policy. You didn't hear a single policy there. He knows full well Project 2025 is something that not only Donald Trump denounced, the entire campaign, RNC denounced, and that has been negated. But they continue with these lies and these personal attacks because they can't talk about policy. The truth of the matter is the policy that Donald Trump had in place when he was president made everyone's lives better. It gave us a great economy. It put actual people back to work. It's protected us around the world. You didn't see wars breaking out in the Middle East and Europe. Guess what? We had peace agreements in the Middle East when Donald Trump was in office. We had a secure southern border, and things felt very good in terms of the trajectory for the average citizen in this country. They can't talk about the policies on the left because they know the policies that worked were actually Donald Trump's. And if you look at the Biden-Harris policies, and Kamala Harris owns every single one of those policies, Anna, they have taken this country in a very tough direction for most people. So I would love to hear them talk about their platform, their vision for the future of this country, and what they plan to do. But I doubt we'll hear a lot of that. They're going to go with weird and couch comments and things like that because they actually can't talk about what they want to do for the future.
Well, I watched the rally from beginning to end, and two of the noticeable topics that they didn't talk about are two that she struggles with, and that's immigration and the economy. But she does speak very eloquently on women's rights and a woman's right to choose. And Tim Walz shared a quite sentimental story about him and his wife going through fertility treatments that's really going to resonate with a big portion of America. And he did say, as you heard, that Donald Trump is playing dumb on Project 2025. Trump's tried to distance himself, but he can't get away from it. Is he playing dumb?
And of course he's not. He was very honest. He has nothing to do with Project 2025. And let me just go back very quickly to the abortion topic. That is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to try to run on. They did lie, and it's not just gaslighting, and it's lying. When they said yesterday, I heard Tim Walz say it, that Donald Trump wants an abortion ban, a federal abortion ban. He has very clearly said, I do not want that. I think the best thing that's possibly happened for democracy and our democratic process is that abortion has gone back to the states. We, the people in our own respective states, get to make that decision. I might have a different opinion in the state of Florida than people in the state of New York have, but that is the beauty of America, and that is how it is supposed to work in this country. We shouldn't have a small group of people in the Supreme Court deciding our healthcare decisions for us. It should be up to us. So don't fall for that trick out there, yes. America. And by the way, IVF is something that Donald Trump has also said he very strongly supports. He knows so many babies that have been born because people have had that miracle in their life.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. Lara Trump, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.